Welcome back to a segment that I haven't done in years. My oldest subscribers will remember that I used to have a segment where I talked about films that I thought were overlooked. To me, these are movies that flew under the radar. Not necessarily movies that a lot of people saw, but maybe people think they're underrated or underappreciated in some way. These are movies that to me are really good, but that honestly you just don't hear about. People don't talk about them. It's hard to even come by physical copies of them, or maybe they're not even out on Blu-ray. There are only 3 reviews for this movie on Rotten Tomatoes, not even enough for a tomato meter. Even after I publish this review, it's not going to have a tomato meter. And what better shirt to wear when talking about an overlooked movie? Actually, this was a complete mistake. I sat down and I was like, oh, fuck. So let's talk about the film Speak. It came out in 2004. It was written and directed by Jessica Sharzer, based off of the book by Laurie Halse Anderson, and it starred Kristen Stewart, fresh off of her excellent role in Panic Room. This movie did not get a theatrical release. It went straight to the Showtime network. It had its premiere at Sundance in 2004, and went straight to TV after that. But basically, this movie exists solely on streaming at this point, unless you have the DVD with its commentaries and things like that. And I had never really heard of the movie before. In fact, the only reason I even came across it was because I was searching Kristen Stewart's filmography to see what else she had done, because I think she is a terrific actress, and she gets a lot of unnecessary hate because of her roles in Twilight. She's a great actress, and if her role in Panic Room and directly after this, Speak, have anything to say, she was always a great actress. This movie's about a young girl entering high school, and she has decided to not talk that much. She says a few things here and there to her friends and family, but for the most part, she doesn't want to talk to anybody, and you can tell that something happened to her. Throughout the film, we slowly uncover layer by layer a very traumatic event that ruined her life. Because of this event, all of her friends at that time have pushed her away. They all avoid her. They spread rumors about her throughout the school. And as I describe it, it sounds like your typical teen angsty movie, but it's really nothing like that. This is one of the most mature explorations I've seen of trauma from the perspective of a young person who isn't ready to come to terms with what happened and doesn't understand how to explain that to anyone. And keep in mind, this movie is 16 years old. In 2004, these types of movies weren't being made as much. A young girl in high school who's dealing with this kind of trauma, and it's just a straightforward, mature look at how that can affect somebody and ruin someone's life. You know, there's no pop music, there's no teen romance, MTV, CW shit. These types of movies were few and far between back then. In 2020, there's a lot more films about women who deal with predators or sexual harassment. Kristen Stewart is really good in this movie, especially considering how much weight this story has, how important it is to a lot of people, and how a lot of that is all resting on her shoulders. She's really good in the film, and her performance has a lot of layers to it. Now you can look at that and say, well, yeah, she's playing a young teen angsty girl who doesn't like to talk. How hard for her. Man, that's some real ripe bullshit. Performances like this are the ones that truly test an actor's ability, ones where there's not a lot of dialogue, because it's entirely on that actor, and hopefully a good director, to explain the story out through their face. You have to understand what's going on in their heads, and usually actors and screenwriters and directors rely on dialogue to get the point across, but when you don't have anything to say, you have to tell the story on your face. So it's infinitely more challenging, and she is up to the task. This was just, along with Panic Room, another early sign that what she could do as an actress. Something I love about this movie is that it really does feel like you're a fly on the wall. The camera work feels invisible. You start to not think about it. That's when direction and cinematography is doing a really good job. When you find yourself not thinking of the film as a series of shots, when you just get lost in the story and the camera work becomes like an objective observer. You're not really analyzing the camera work. And again, you can look at that and say, well, that's because it's very simple camera work. If it looks really easy, it probably wasn't. This is the same DP who later went on to shoot films like Half Nelson and Blue Valentine. Other films that feel like you're observing real events. He has an excellent way of capturing scenes that are obviously planned out and structured and making them feel like they're not. Steve Zahn plays an art teacher, and he's one of the few adults that Kristen Stewart's character is able to connect with. She finds an interest in art because he assigns her a topic at the beginning of the year. He says, you are going to craft a tree. You're going to either draw a tree or paint a tree or sculpt a tree. You're going to find a way to put meaning into a tree in a form of art. And this is very, very important to the traumatic event that occurred to her in the past. I'm not spoiling things in this movie because I'm assuming you haven't seen the fucking movie. It's overlooked in my opinion, so I don't want to get into spoilers. But the friendship that develops between them is one of the most heartwarming aspects of the movie, and both times I've seen the film in the past week, I've cried at the same moment. It's a really beautiful friendship, and Steve Zahn is excellent in the film. When he first showed up, I was like, Steve Zahn is an art teacher? Okay. Prove me wrong. Oh, you're proving me wrong. You're really fucking good in this movie. Okay. My bad. And this is just a personal bias, but the film was shot in Ohio. And anytime a movie is shot in Ohio, I do try to seek it out because I want to see, what people around here have done. And this movie feels at home to me because of that. Like, there's just an aspect of it that, like I said, very, very biased, but there's an aspect of it that just reminds me of home. And they also dealt with some flooding during the production, and they had to find ways around that to add it into the film or change scenes. And whenever a director can pull that off, then I automatically have so much more respect for that person. In this case, Jessica Sharzer did an excellent job directing this movie. As I said already, I never really felt like I was watching a planned series of events. There are very few movies where you can't really see the structure. Like, I just didn't think of this movie in a simple 3-act structure while watching it. Those thoughts didn't come into my mind. I was just lost in these characters. There's also scenes that feel risky and that they don't really feel like something important is happening. There's a sequence where she just decides to ditch school one day, go to a hospital, and jump in a bed and pretend to be a patient because she just wants to see if anyone will notice that she doesn't belong there. Those scenes that some people might consider meaningless and you should probably cut them out of your script because it does nothing for your characters really sometimes can help your movie because you really just notice how lost she feels, that she's just wandering away from society and seeing if anyone even notices. I would highly recommend checking out Speak, especially if you like smaller films like this. Please do not expect this to be some Christopher Nolan epic drama. This is a very small scale slice of life kind of movie that I really respect. I would love to be able to make a film like this one day and have it feel as real as this movie does. I'm not going to grade it. In fact, going forward with the overlooked movies segment, I'm not going to grade any of them, similar to how I don't grade hilariosities. You guys watch a hilariosity, you know how I feel about that movie. You don't need me to say, well, this one gets a D or something. Like, that's just stupid. For this segment, it's obvious that I like the movie, and I'm telling you that you should probably check it out sometime if you can. But something else I'd like to do with this segment going forward is hopefully find a way that I can talk to somebody involved in the production and do an interview and share that with you guys as well. Because specifically for this movie, doing research on it, I had a really hard time finding out anything really. There were not a lot of interviews, there wasn't a lot of footage behind the scenes or anything like that. So I reached out to Jessica Sharzer, the writer-director, and she sat down with me and we did an interview through Skype, and I'm going to be uploading that in a day or two. She dropped a lot of bombs about this movie, just all kinds of stuff about how she made it, getting the job, getting the script greenlit, challenges during production. It was really fascinating for me, especially as not just as a fan of the movie, but as somebody who wants to make films professionally. I was fascinated, and I think that if you're in the same boat and you also want to make films, you're going to enjoy that interview. But it's also a great source for learning more about this movie because I just couldn't really find much info about it. So that'll be up in a few days, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to continuing this segment. I'm not going to do it like super regularly all the time. I just really want to sit back and try to locate movies that I think are special, that there's just not that much info about them. People aren't really talking about them. And for me, this was one of them. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Please do look forward to more reviews very soon. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.